Meanwhile, in the east, another conflict is intensifying. The Korean peninsula is tense. North Korea is firing one missile after another. Today, it launched 2 ballistic missiles. And this was Pyongyang's second test in 3 days. These tests came with an ominous threat. Kim Jong Un's sister has spoken out. Her name is Kim Yo-jong. Listen to what she said. The frequency of using the Pacific Ocean as our shooting range depends on the nature of the US military's actions. Let me repeat that. She says Pyongyang is using the Pacific as its shooting range. What is the US military doing? More shooting. The US is conducting military drills in the region, 2 separate drills with 2 regional powers, Japan and South Korea. Looks like a chicken and egg situation. Who instigated whom here? And why is this escalation happening now? Let's start with North Korea. Their missile tests are a frequent affair. Provocation or no provocation, North Korea tests missiles. It conducts these tests for 3 reasons. Number 1, to improve its technology. Number 2, to send a message to rivals like the US. And number 3, to shore up loyalty at home, to make the Kims look tough. You may remember how the year began for them. Kim Jong Un started 2023 with a pledge. He wants to, quote-unquote, exponentially increase North Korea's arsenal. And he's been chasing these goals for the past few years. He wants 2 things, basically, more tactical nuclear weapons and higher yield of nuclear bombs. What does that mean? What is higher yield? Yield is the amount of energy a bomb can release. So the higher the energy, the more lethal the bomb. Essentially, Kim wants a more powerful bomb for North Korea, and he may be on course to achieving this goal. This month, Pyongyang hosted a massive parade. We told you about it. The event was in news because of Kim's daughter, Kim Joo-ae. Her appearance fueled speculation. She is now being seen as a potential successor to her father. But that wasn't the only highlight of the parade. The second headline was this missile, the Hwasong-17. The Hwasong-17 is North Korea's biggest missile yet. Reports say it can travel as far as 15,000 kilometers. And that is enough to reach the United States, 15,000 kilometers. And the other worry is this. The missile is an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. ICBMs are mainly designed for nuclear bombs. Some carry just 1 warhead. The newer versions are more advanced. A modern-day ICBM can carry multiple warheads. What about the North Korean ICBMs? How much can they pack? There is no independent assessment yet, but the US and its allies are not underestimating Pyongyang. Japan, meanwhile, wants the United Nations to intervene.
From the launch on the 18th, it is clear that North Korea is pursuing the practical application of ICBM-class ballistic missiles. The series of actions taken by North Korea is absolutely unacceptable as it threatens the peace and security of our region and the international community.
Tokyo says North Korea will conduct more tests in the future. In Seoul, politicians are calling for nukes. There is a strong support for the idea now in South Korea. Consider what the head of the ruling party said. His name is Chung Jin-suk, and I'm quoting, "We must first secure concrete nuclear deterrence. We need to strengthen our kill chain so North Korea can never rise to its feet again if it uses nukes on the Korean peninsula." Now, what is a kill chain? It is a reference to a preemptive strike capability. That's a kill chain. If the South feels that a nuclear attack from the North is imminent, it will try to, quote-unquote, decapitate the Kims. It will strike at the leadership of North Korea, kill the Kims. What about the United States? What will the US do in the event of a North Korean attack? The US promises ironclad support to South Korea and Japan. But then again, these are all just promises and scenarios. The fact of the matter is, Kim Jong Un is ramping up his arsenal. Every missile test shrinks the scope of a diplomatic solution. A new cancer is spreading through America. It doesn't harm the body, but it cripples lives and livelihoods. I'm talking about the cancer of debt. Look at this headline. US credit card debt now totals nearly $1 trillion. American households are in distress. They have put almost $1 trillion on credit cards, which is a record, an all-time high. How much credit card debt do Americans owe? A whopping $986 billion. That's an increase of $130 billion from last year. What's the average debt of a household? Around $6,500. This is what Americans owe to credit companies. How many are affected? At the end of 2022, more than 18 million borrowers were behind on their credit card bills, which is an alarming number. Credit card debt is the worst form of borrowing. It attracts a high interest rate. In the case of the US, around 20% on average, which is a very high number. And the latest figures show that Americans are caught in a debt trap. The question is why? Why are Americans putting so much money on credit cards? Because they're struggling to make ends meet. High inflation is hurting monthly budgets. Inflation in the US is around 8%. The target for the US Federal Reserve, their central bank, the American Central Bank, the US Federal Reserve Bank, the target is 2%. So inflation is 3 times higher than the target. Plus the Fed has increased interest rates. So rates for borrowing have gone up, and that is making things worse because anyone with a loan will end up paying more. The credit card situation is just a symptom. The real problem is much bigger. America's total household debt is also at a record high. They owe $16.9 trillion. This includes all kinds of loans, credit card debt, home loans, car loans, you name it. $16.9 trillion in debt. Americans are struggling to make ends meet. I'll show you more numbers. These are from last year. Nearly 65% Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The middle class is hurting the most. More than 80% of them cut down on their savings. Either they saved less every month or they dipped into their savings to survive. This could have a big impact on America's economy. Consumer spending is 70% of the US GDP. So if households spend less, the US economy will decline. And this is an indictment of the US president. He's failing to address one of the biggest problems that Americans face today. That is debt. And this is not just about personal finance. In America, debt is part of the popular culture. Most students graduate with a student loan. Going by one claim, 45 million Americans have student loan debt. That's about 1 in 5 US adults. In 2015, more than 100 million Americans had an auto loan. 114 million Americans have borrowed to buy a home. Long story short, America has a debt problem, one that it is yet to recognize and address. Biden's visit to Kiev has created waves. But will Americans support this war if they cannot pay their own bills? Expect the president to face tough scrutiny at home. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. We start with Turkey, still picking up the pieces. The rescue effort has ended in all but 2 places. Amid the devastation, some birthday cheer for a 5-year-old girl. And carnivals across the world. In Italy, it's the Battle of Oranges, much like Holi in India and Tomatina in Spain. This event dates back to medieval times, we're told. In Colombia, it's the Battle of Flowers, one of the most popular parades in the country. And in Brazil, the world's biggest carnival, the showstopper was a Bollywood-style parade with Brazilians in traditional Indian clothes dancing to Indian music. We're leaving you with this. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Toma bastante água e cerveja.